here any second. All right, we're live, man. Hey, we got Adam Wingfield here. Hold my beer. We're talking freight, man. It's gonna be a good one. I've always liked following him. I haven't got really to interact with him much until the last couple of weeks. We tried to get one done at the Mid America Truck Show, but really met him through Cassandra and Jolly and those guys, right? And if those guys like him, then that usually means he's got what it takes. But if you follow his stuff, he's a lot like me, where I guess he's been here longer. I'm a lot like him in the fact that, we say what needs to be said. You know what I mean? No apologies. Just, this is what it is. And, we professional about it, but at the same time, hey, quit complaining. There's a certain way to do things. And that's kind of what we do. So Tony's out today. He had a meeting come up last minute. Jeff's on vacation. I can't remember if he told me he was going to make it or not, but he's usually always early. So I'm assuming he's not coming. And then Lewis is in his truck. So he's going to be popping in here any minute. He just texted me. So that's what you get when you get a show like this. That's what we like about it. So we're going to start on it right off the bat. So, I want to touch on, one big thing that I like that you brought up, and I got to be careful because, I feel like a lot of my content things are kind of more based to the brokerage side because there's a lot more I feel like there's a lot more that could be fixed there with the youth and the lack of management training and things like that. However, I've got a lot of experience on the asset side. And so there's a lot of times I want to say something about it or bring it up. It's tough. You got to tread lightly because, drivers and shit like that. But I've dealt with so many drivers and so many, equipment and everything there is to do. But that's one thing that you've always kind of done that I always kind of liked. And, in 2023, there's a lot of people that are talking about, articles and things, where, hey, there's companies going out of business. There's, drivers, we're going to lose drivers, all these things like that. But there's also ones that are doing it right and doing it well. I'm assuming you guys are one of those, right? But give us a little background on yourself, Adam, and then also kind of what you guys do there at Innovative Logistics.
Man, I've been in this business in 2000. So it's 23 years in this business, in this industry. And like you said, man, there's going to be articles out there about, companies going out of business, particularly in marketplaces like this. But what people don't look at is in 2021, we had the same amount of people that were going out of business during a time when things were going great. And it doesn't matter what market that you're in, depending on how you structure your business is going to determine your results. So we started back in 2000 as a driver, moved on to an owner operator. And, I was in my first bear market, what we call bear market with folks that probably don't have any experience to in this particular marketplace. It was back in 2004 and 2005. So I got to experience that face to face with it. And, I made all the mistakes, scaled a bunch of trucks and really used my whole experience of that to really kind of teach people how to do it the right way. And then we started the coaching experience back in 2016. So 3 years into that coaching experience, we went into our next bear market, was the 2019 marketplace, which people really don't realize, TJ, and some do, some don't. But, typically when folks get into the industry during the peaks, they don't realize that the peak is just a result of a valley. And the industry itself is a huge pendulum. One of the things that I was preaching back in 2021 was that, hey, you know what? Let's not get too excited about this, because no matter what direction that pendulum swings, it's going to swing back in the same direction with the same amount of force. And we kind of saw that coming. So we're really teaching and really focus on preparation, really teaching good business principles and business practices. One of the things that I found with owner operators and fleet owners is they're not great in a lot of instances on just being business owners and establishing those principles that require from a business perspective. You mentioned tread lightly, and that's a shame that you have to do that. But it's almost like in some instances, you have to have an elementary approach in order to have a conversation with a CEO. So me sitting across the room from another owner operator, I'm a CEO just as much as that owner operator is a CEO, but he might not see it as much. He may not have as many employees or many assets that I have, but we're all in that same boat. So my biggest passion is success and teaching people how to be successful. And sometimes, like you said, sometimes it's going to come out in a manner that people are not going to want to hear. I had a carrier a couple of days ago with 30 units that I told him to slash their fleet in half just because of bad principles, bad management. Park this truck, park that truck. You're not making break even. Do this, do that. A lot of times they want to hear that. But when you build your business based off of spot market activity, you've got to expect to deal with the brunt that comes with it on the backside.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think, I dealt with the 2019, market, and, it was kind of funny. I've always kind of put out there too. It's like, during the good times you prepare for the bad ones. During the bad times you prepare for the good ones because they're coming. And it was weird because that's when a lot of people come into industry is when there's peaks. That's when people are hiring, right, to kind of get ahead and make sure they got all the people that can handle it. But it's funny, I remember, man, when things were booming, and I'm walking around the office and I see these people, walking around their chest out, bragging and I had been, I was able to move freight and figure things out during the bad times, you know what I mean? And that's when it was hardest. And that made me better, right? It made me, I feel like, handle situations, figure things out, get creative, right? I mean, figure things out, the right way to do things. And these people just came in and got handed stuff and were just doing well. And I remember saying so many times, like, man, these guys have no idea what's going to happen. It's a lot of them aren't even in it anymore. And because it's just, as soon as it gets bad, they're out. And, I think with drivers, like you said, you tread lightly, but, when I was overseeing our fleet, so, I started, dispatch, then I was operations manager over our asset side, went over to brokerage because that was growing so fast, helped build that out, and then went back over to the asset side in 2020 when COVID first hit, right? We were very automotive based. So all of them shut down. We had, a lot of like, the dedicated lanes we have for like Ford, say, or things like that, opened up other opportunities for us expedite wise and things like that. So we had to run those lanes. I mean, we just had to. And I tried to preach to these guys, like, oh man, I'm sitting in a truck stop and I'm talking to this guy. He's out, he's making this much money on finding loads on the spot market. I'm like, you go do that all you want. Like, go do that. That's fine. But when shit hits the fan and you don't have this dedicated route every single day that still is profitable to you, that keeps you through the house every day, but that's fine. Go out and run that. The dude that's sitting there at the truck stop and see. But let's see what he says here in about a year and a half when things hit the fan. And brought some energy. Brought those things. You asked Lewis should be on here. He was in that fleet. Now, that's how I got to know him. And he didn't trust nobody trusts anybody at first. But I brought a lot of energy. Anytime I came down on them, it was because they were doing shit that was affecting other drivers, right? So I come out with an email to the whole fleet saying, hey, get your shit together. When you drop a trailer, there needs to be a post-check, right? Inspection. Make sure you're not dropping a trailer with a flat tire because the next guy that comes in's got to deal with it, right? And I put some some consequences on there and shit. Mm-hmm. And what's funny? The only people you hear from are the ones that were doing it, right? The ones that were doing it wrong. But everybody else, hey, I appreciate that, TJ. I appreciate that, TJ. But there's a little bit of energy that comes with it. And I think there's a lot of people, and that's when you really start to see the difference between guys that get it and guys that don't, or guys that are in it just for them, or are in it for, say, you're part of a fleet, and there's a lot of drop trailers involved or something like that, where they understand that, like, hey, that's good for me though, right? That's good for me because I don't have to come in and deal with a flat tire. I don't have to come in and pick up a trailer that doesn't isn't cleaned out or isn't done correctly. When I want to get my routes in, I want to get as many loads in as I can that week. So I think the biggest thing, I think, for me, no matter what it is, whether you're a driver, owner, operator, you're in a fleet, you're in a company driver, you're a broker, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think the nice part about this type of market when it goes like this is it separates those people. It weeds out those people. People want to say, oh, we're going to lose, regulate rates because, we're losing carriers and stuff. Like, those carriers didn't belong anyways. Uh-huh. I'm just saying, I'm sorry, but they did. I mean, they got in it. They were making money. It was easy to make money. And when shit gets hard, they have no creative side, nothing to, like, they weren't prepared for it. And that's what capitalism is, man. That's what America is. That's why we have the biggest economy. I mean, that's what we do. And you regulate it, and it's just going to go back to, what separates me then? Let's regulate rates, right? I'm running harder. I'm working smarter. I'm doing better than this guy over here, but he's making the same amount as me. I don't want that. I want to get rewarded for my, ability to, think ahead and actually be logical and smart. And I don't know. I know that's something you guys preach a lot of, right? Is that proactive approach, correct?
Yeah, and in times like this, it's not about doubling down on doubts. It's on doubling down on your efforts. And a lot of times you got these folks that get into business that started their businesses doing that. And, you'll be surprised to see the level or the lack of level of compliance and just not making sure that they establish their fleets the right way. And people don't realize things as small as making sure that your drivers are doing pre-trip inspections every single day, just like you talked about with the post-trip. The reason why that pre-trip inspection is so important is because you might catch something that you're going to get caught up on a roadside inspection that's going to give you an OOS. And you get that OOS, and that's the only inspection that you had all year. Now, all of a sudden, guess what? I'm 100% out of service. And when I go to book freight with TJ, he's going to say, yeah, I can't use you because your CSA score is out of whack. So it's important that our specialty is on the things that you can control. There's nothing out here that says that, you know what, capitalism is going to change. There's nothing out here that's going to say, hey, you know what, if we put standardized pricing on spot truckload pricing, that's going to make the situation any better. Because there's no comparison when you put people that are under our tutelage and people that are under our resources up against the next person is completely different, because we focused on the business side of things, the acumen side, ensuring that you got websites, ensuring you got brand presence, ensuring that you got a pitch deck, ensuring that you're able to go in and you're actually able to have a conversation with a shipper, ensuring you know how to write an email, ensuring that you know how to do things that's very, very minimalistic, which you may seem that it's frugal to us, but on a big scope of things, we've got a lot of owners and business owners that don't do that. We got business owners that don't understand the importance of managing things such as fuel, ensuring that you know what, the less that you put in that diesel tank, the more money that you're going to make at the end of the day. I can't change, and I can't sit there and be the one that's going to say, hey, I'm going to change the rates that TJ is going to put on this particular lane. But I can tell you one thing I can change. I can change how much money I'm going to spend to run that lane. And trucking is not about what you make; it's about what you don't spend. And at the end of the day, and I was just having this conversation just a few minutes ago, that when we say cheap freight, and when you hear that whole cheap freight, what's cheap to me may not be cheap to you. You may have a completely different operational point than I do. We got owner operators now, and we got fleet owners within our tutelage at $1.60, $1.70 a mile on break-even points. If you tell them that $2 is cheap freight to them, then you're not being honest, right? Because at that point, they're making 20 and 30% profit. And as those rates increase and that margin widens up, they've established their business the right way. So and kind of going back to what you stated, like when we go about, when we're discussing rates and when we're discussing the marketplace and the actual stability of markets such as this, nobody was positioned in the spot activity to really just stay here. That spot market is only supposed to be a backhaul market. You should be out there. You have a business. You have a service. If you start a trucking company, you started a business. Your business is a service provider. Go out there and get customers. And there's times where you might have a broker that's providing you great lanes. That's your biggest customer. Make sure you take care of that customer. Make sure that you garnish that relationship. Make sure that you're asking for feedback. Make sure you continuously improving that communication. Because I tell you what, in markets like this, if I've got a relationship with the TJs who says, you know what, just bear with me during this. I'll make sure that when things pick up, I got you. I know that I'm going to be the first person that TJ calls when he's got a high volume lane and needs a dedicated carrier on it. But what we have to do is we've got to get carriers to understand that.
Yeah, and I think, we got Lewis on now. It's funny you say that because, we're on our way down to Louisville for the truck show, right? And we're in his truck. And this is how I know he's a driver, because he drove like a grandma the whole way. You know what I mean? And
Smart man.
Right in his lane, speed limit, right in his lane. There's construction. We get off the highway. I'm like, why are we getting off the highway? He's like, dude, there's construction like 5 miles up. I'm taking this one. He's out and around. He already had it in there. Like, I'm like, what? We get around it. And,
that's a professional driver. That's what they call.
Yeah. So we get down to Louisville, and he gets off to go to there. He gets off before the bridge to go through downtown. And he's like, "Oh, that's what I do in my truck too. I ain't paying tolls." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "All right." So we're like going through down. He's like, "Yeah, I'm down here in my truck half time going through." And but what my point is that he gets a call, probably 2 or 3 calls, I think, while I'm in the truck with him from brokers. Hey man, what's going on, Lewis? Hey, I got this lane next Wednesday. Right, this is a Thursday. It's like next Wednesday, I got this lane. It goes here. You go, yeah. What do you got in it? I got this much in it. Okay, all right. When's it pick up? When's it deliver? All right, cool. Yeah, all right, cool. Let me take a look at it here. I'll call you back when I sit down and look at my schedule. All right, cool. Right. I mean, he's getting called. Yeah. Like he's getting calls from people. Not the other way around. And right. Like it's so cool to see it because I've preached it. And especially with when he was in the fleet. He was doing things that, listen, when I'm running a fleet, there's freight that's better than others. Mm-hmm. If you're a pain in the ass and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, sorry, but if an expedite comes up, Ford says, "Hey, we need something rammed," I'm calling Lewis. Yeah. Right? And I'm saying, Lewis, hey, what's it gonna take to get you out of the house? He's asking his wife, hey, what's it gonna take for me to be able to go run this? You know what I mean? Your price. It doesn't matter at that point, right? But he got that opportunity, right? Because he's the one sending me a screenshot after running 3 loads for me that were hot, where he set his parking brake with 1 minute left on his clock. Mm-hmm. Shit like that where, things get done. So Lewis touch a little bit on that. Adam touched on a little bit. I kind of gave you some credit there for what, but the relationships you build, And I mean, you're still in the spot market a little bit, but even what was the other day? You said you came out, got your truck back, and ran a $600 expedite that was 8 miles or something.
Yeah. I so as I was, we'll just talk on that one. There's 2 stories we'll touch on a little bit that fall in line with what you were talking about, Adam, when I got on here a little late. But yesterday I picked my rig up from the shop. It was there for like 9 days. It was down. On my way to picking it up, I had already seen a load that I was like, in my area. And I was like, what's this about? Right. So I looked at it and I was like, it's still there. And it's like noon. And I'm like, this rate, like something's up, like something was fishy. Like I'm like, it's either they forgot to take it off or it's still hanging out on the load board. So either way, I knew who it was and I called him and I was like, hey, what's going on with this? He's like, it's a repower load, here's where it's at. And I'm like, I'm right next to that pick. Like I'm literally pulling into the yard where that trailer's sitting. I said, there's 2 here. What's the trailer number? He spit the trailer number off. He goes, what can you move it for? I go, I can do probably 600 for it. I'm right here. He said it was 6 miles to deliver it and just turn the trailer right back. So I didn't even get a chance to go pick my trailer up. Like I parked my personal vehicle right at the shop, picked up the semi, drove 25 yards to pick the tree loaded up. And here's where the story really, I think, is the best part of the story. That is not the best part of that situation. The best part of that situation is where I delivered the load. I knew everyone in the receiving office. I knew the lady that runs the shipping office. I knew the place because I personally went in there and established a relationship, ironically, 6 months ago. And I just showed back up and I was like, hey, and they were like, hey, what are you doing here? And I was like, got a load for you. I'm just fixing it. It's a one that a customer fell off on. They got me in a dock. I was out in 30 minutes. Super cool how that worked out. And then, so there was a live phone call that TJ and I were doing down in Louisville where a broker called. And normally, so I'm not working. That was pure pleasure. Like that was, we were just having a good time. We were down at the Mid-America Truck Show and they call. And the reason why I took the call is because it's a broker that I normally work a lot with. So I have a good relationship. I knew I wasn't going to be able to take the load, but I was looking for information. So every time I answer a call, I'm not always trying to just book that load. I want to know, what are they talking about? Because they're going to tell me it's either a hot load. They're going to give me all the information. And whether or not I can book that load, if I can, I got a buddy I could call like this and be like, hey, in my area, that's another owner op that I can be like, hey, they got a hot load. It's got some money in it. Call them. So worst case, if I can't take that load, it still gives me information on what's happening with that load at that time. Because I know that broker. And if I know the customer, I know the commodity and I know what's happening there simply because I took the call. So a lot of times just by picking up a phone and listening, there's opportunities in that phone call that you'll never know are there if you don't pick it up and give them the time to talk. You don't have to come. It takes a minute to find out what's going on with these loads typically. And they'll tell you, all right, they give you all the info. So yeah, I took it because I'm like, when is it picking up? And I needed I wanted the info. That's what it was. I wanted to hear the information. And then I knew I couldn't take that specific load, but when we grow, the relationship's there. So.
Now, the one thing that Luis that you just said, and I want to go back to it because you went over it pretty fast, but I want to talk about how important it is.
All right.
Right. So you said you went to the shipper. He's like, man, yeah, I knew these folks because I've been there before.
Right.
But your attitude and your energy when you walked in, it was like, hey, it's me again. Right. It's all about personality. And the thing about it is a lot of times you get owner operators, you get fleet owners on these phone calls, and they forget about the fact that the person on the other side is a person.
Yeah.
Right. Everything can't be transactional. Relationships are currency. And a lot of things that I see is that folks just don't exuberate that overall hunger about being that professional, right? So you went in there, you laughing, you joking. I'm a professional at the end of the day. Right. Luis, you're a professional.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you don't behave, like a professional, you don't get opportunities. You're right. You're absolutely
you get the
right.
energy. You get the same. I'm the type of person. and just me as a person, I'm gonna give you the same energy that you give me. You know, I'm the
Right,
nicest guy, I'm
right.
the coolest guy in the world. As
Right,
long as
right,
we get
right.
the same page. But if you want to go there, I can take it there with you.
Yeah,
But you got to remember that real people are just like that. And what we have to do, and what this is not the time to get on the phone and be so transactional, because you never know. 6 months down the road, you had a shipper that if you had acted a fool 6 months ago, what do you think would have happened when you pulled in there? All of
correct.
a sudden, you wondering why you waiting to get on the dock. All of a sudden,
Right.
you wondering why you being
Right.
detained. Like, it's all about relationships, man.
And that was real popular. Like early on when I started in the industry 4 years ago, I learned that really, really fast. That like just because you're in a hurry, you're having a bad day, you're literally right. Whatever you give is what you receive. Whatever you receive is what you give. There's a lot of these places where there were times where I could have handled it differently, and I learned how much that mattered. Literally, how much that mattered. And so at that point, it's like, okay, you have to behave. If you're going to be in this field, you have to behave professionally, and if you don't, you're not going to have relationships. You're not going to last fast. That's going to be you're going to be the first foot out the door.
Yeah. And
you're right.
It's so funny because we'll touch on this again. I don't know if I had heard the story when you were looking to stay more local, right? And I had a shipper I knew in town, and one of my dad's buddies works out there. He drives for him, but he drives like for them, right? Shuttles trailers, kind of does local runs. But I know they have a lot of stuff that goes over the road, even just within Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. And I told him about it, and I told him the name. And I think I got us in a group text too, Lewis. I'm not sure. But anyways, Lewis calls me. He's like, hey, man, I called over there. And I was like, hey, I'm Lewis with Dedicated Trucking. And, and the guy's like, how'd you get my number? And he's like, well, Stu that works over there. He's like, no, don't call me. And I'm like, Lewis. I go, but see.
That threw me off.
This is my point. Owner operators, man, you got such an advantage from a sales standpoint. I said, Lewis, don't call him. I said, you sound like every other broker that's calling him every day. I said, pull up, not in your personal vehicle, pull up fucking bobtail over there, pull up in your truck, park it right in front of his fucking shipping door so he can see you, leave it running, get out, walk in, shake his hand, say, I'm Louis Claudio, just park my truck outside. I live right here 20 miles down the road in Huntington. And I'd like to be able to run some dedicated, some freight for you, have a little conversation. He did it. The dude's like, what? The dude gave you his lane file, like all his lanes to price.
Yeah. I was honestly surprised how that played out, because that's literally how I did it. I mean, I didn't park it right in front of the dock door, but I did. I rolled up in the bobtail and I went up there, and at first, after he handled himself on the phone, I was like, if it were for TJ kind of giving me a little bit of insight on that, I would have probably, just based on that phone call, would have never went back. So I had to step back and say, okay, he's probably living in a super high intense world. He's got a million carriers coming at him. He's the one guy handling that entire operation.
Yep.
So I said, okay, I know this business. TJ's input was good input. So let's marry those two. I showed up, shook hands. I got a lane file, and I was like, what?
And the difference
I'm not surprised though.
The difference is learning the different, like when it comes to sales, learning the difference in what a guy that makes decisions, that's working in the docks, that's right there. The thing is, he deals with it day in, day out, right? He deals with drivers. He deals with forklift. He probably, just like Tony, has to hop on a forklift every once in a while, right? Deal with those guys not showing up, rapid pallets this, all this shit going wrong. Some kid calls him that wants to move freight. He's not fucking with him. He's just not there. But a dude walks in, his truck out front. He understands he could probably, first of all, take a 2-minute break and shake your hand and actually talk to you. But the other thing is he's got a driver standing right in front of him that had the balls to walk in, shake his hand. He's probably old school, right? It's a whole different world. I mean, like if you were trying to get with some company that had, you got to go to an office or something, it's a whole different story. But that setup right there is such an advantage for a lot of these owner operators. Adam, would you talk to people about that a lot on sales side too?
Man, my thing is that you got to own your backyard, right? So, I can't pull up to, I don't know where Louis, where you're sitting at, but I shouldn't be able to go to any shipper in that area and they not know who you are. Now, the thing about it is, I get it. You might not have the capacity, you might not have the available trucks to be able to facilitate the large shippers, but every shipper is not an enterprise shipper. You got, just like you got mom and pop trucking companies, you got mom and pop shippers and manufacturers out there that would love to have that face-to-face relationship. And it is a benefit for me as a shipper that if Luis is just living 20 miles down the highway versus me dealing with a 3PL that's stationed in California, it's a whole lot better for me because if I got an issue, hey, let's meet up Starbucks and let's have a conversation about this. Hey, let's go meet up at the WeWork and let's have a conversation about this and see how we can make this better, right? It's about building relationships, but in your own backyard as an owner operator or as a carrier, you need to know every single manufacturer and distributor that in that little small area in your backyard within that 10, 20-mile radius. And once you establish the fact that you contacted, you tried to get freight from every single one of them, then go out 5 more miles, then go out 10 more miles, and go out 20 more miles. But you have to have a sales approach. And the thing about any business is that as a business, you got to have it's just simple as plain. You have to have marketing. You got to be marketable. So part of owning a trucking company is marketing your services. And Luis, your truck is the same truck as mine, probably got the same crack on the windshield. But at the end of the day, what you provide has to be different than what I provide in order for you to get the business. And what you were able to do, because you're closer than me, you were able to have a differentiator. You're differentiated. Hey, I'm a local based carrier right here in your backyard. If you need anything, I'm only 20 miles away. I can probably provide you with expedited freight solutions that you wouldn't be able to manage. And on top of that, I can pick up and deliver next day within 500 miles for you the very next day. And I'll be right in your backyard to pick up the next load within the next 10 hours later. So there's a lot of different advantages that you can have that own in your backyard, but you have to own that green mile. I love calling it the green mile. The green mile for an owner operator, the green mile for a carrier is whatever zip code that you live in, wherever you park that truck, when you laying your head down and going to Target at night to get groceries, that's your green mile. And there should be not one distributor. If I Google your zip code, Louis, I shouldn't find one that don't know who you are. Not one that's never heard about you, and not one that you haven't dropped a flyer or a pin. And I'm gonna tell you what I used to do. As an owner operator, I used to buy those cheap pins that had my company name on. And when I go to a shipping office and I'm signing my paperwork in a shipping office, I leave my pin and I wouldn't sign with theirs. So I'm leaving breadcrumbs everywhere I go. And you never know when somebody picks up that pin and they're like, man, who the heck is this? I'm gonna call them. You just never know. And you got to do the little things. If you're not willing to do the little things, you can't expect to be rewarded on the big things.
Because people want to, in this industry, right? It's just how it works. People want to solve things that, first of all, they want to be the one to solve it. Second of all, they want to solve it quick. And what's solving it quick means? The first thing comes to your head, right? So guy didn't show up, pick a load up, right? He's got, say the dude, just talk about the shipper that we were talking about. He's got all those people bitching at him because they all want to go home, right? But they got to get this load moved. So now he's got to get on the phone, find somebody, whatever it is. First thing comes to his head. Boom, he's going to be the hero. Why? Because he's like, oh, Lewis. Lewis is like 20 miles down the road. Lewis, where are you at? Let's call Lewis, see where he's at. Call Lewis, see where he's at, right? All of a sudden, that's like a thing, right? It becomes a, hey, who's that guy? And you look at, you may start mom and pop, and some shippers may start mom and pop. But I really learned, you look at some of these enterprise shippers now. You look at like Cortiva, right? They used to be owned by Dow, right? So Cortiva, they ship all the, when Dow split off from them, they bought Pioneer, right? So they got all the agriculture pesticides, right? Pioneer, you see those signs in the cornfields, all that stuff. They do all the pesticides, all the stuff agriculture. It's huge. It's in Iowa. You go out by that Dow, well, it's not Dow anymore, but that Cortiva facility out in Iowa, and there are, if you Google map it, there's about 6 carriers that are all right there, okay? And right there, built right around it. And you go to a lot of these enterprise places, and there's a lot of them that are around it that built from nothing, because that started as a small facility, now it's huge. And now these carriers, you look, and they got 100 trailers outside. And you talk to them, and when I had that account, I would talk to them, source these guys, they'd be like, they're not set up direct with them, but they've been running that freight for 50 years, right? They've been running that freight for 50 years. And, Bayer is another one. Bayer, Monsanto is the other one. That's all the seeds and everything, right? All Iowa. And these guys have been running it forever, these same lanes, right? But they've never really been set up direct, or they used to back in the day. My dad used to know the guy we were set back in the day, and then they went big. Now XPO, I don't care. You go try and land. It's not really that great. But they manage it now, right? Now you got to go through them. So these guys can't get set up. They find out who has it, what broker got it, whatever. We're going to run it for them. But they're right there. They know when they go with somebody carrier sources, they're going to run those same lanes. They base all their trucks, everything around it. But it started with their dad or their grandpa, going out for a steak dinner with the dude that used to run it. And that's how they built that fleet out. Started as both mom and pops, and now all of a sudden look at both of them.
The thing about that is that I also like to remind people is that don't let somebody else's problem becomes your problems. And what I mean by that, particularly in this industry, is you always hear folks complain, oh, you're not going to be able to get dedicated freight. Oh, I've been running 30, 35 years and I've never been on dedicated freight. That's not my problem. That's your problem, right? If you haven't decided on taking the steps that's necessary for you to either create relationships, improve yourself, and your self-development, so that way you can go out and you can have business conversations. If you decided that you wasn't going to do that on your terms, that's your problem, not my problem. Don't allow somebody else's problem in this business become yours. Stay laser focused on your own business. Stay laser focused on the things that you know needs to be done. And if you're not good at things like public speaking, or if you're not good at things like getting out there and actually promoting yourself, then guess what? There's schools, there's courses, there's online stuff. There's all kind of resources for you to be able to improve that. But you're still at the end of the day a business owner, just like you are, Luis. You're a business owner. You've been a business owner for 4 years. Even at that realm, you still always got to constantly improve. And as you constantly improve, your results will also constantly improve as well. But a lot of times, man, the easiest thing we want to do is we want to go get on the FMCSA broker panel and talk about broker transparency and say that's going to fix all of our problems. Yeah. That ain't going to fix your problems. The FMCSA is not going to fix your problem because you can't manage your business. That's not going to fix the problem. You need to focus on fixing your own problem. And I don't have a problem saying that.
Nope.
Yeah, when it comes to like running the business part of this business, it's definitely something that if you're going to choose to do that, you know, you have to have so many things in order. You have to be so focused on the fact that it's a business and that you're running a business. You're not just driving a truck and just picking up a load. You know, if you're the independent operator, you're everything. You're all 10 hats all the time. You're not just driving it. You're not just picking it up and delivering it. You're meeting all these people. And if you want to stay in the game or have any kind of credibility in this industry, being professional is your calling card. When you're not professional, that hurts you more than it helps you. That's all it does. It really doesn't help you. It hurts you more than anything else because, once again, they're not going to want to deal with anyone that isn't organized or they can't trust or, you know, they worry about or is rude or fill in the blank, right?
There's a lot of them that have that same mentality, but how many people know about that, right? Right now, especially right now when rates are down. It's how it is all the time. But brokers are always talking and always preaching, like the good ones always are finding carriers. Carrier sourcing is so key. You know, and you hear these carriers, brokers trying to fuck us there. Dude, you guys don't understand, like, they're building teams around just finding carriers and building relationships. The best brokers I know, I've offered $200K plus for them to come work for us as a manager, whatever. And they wouldn't do it because they're making more money because the best brokers literally are just like carrier sales reps, basically. But they have such good relationships with their carriers. It's like customers. They're taking them out to dinner. They're doing all these things, right? And people understand that that's a thing when you market yourself. So, Lewis, when you put those posts out about you finishing your logs out, what was the other day about the biggest DOT violations or things that just aren't updated? Expired registration, expired this, Stay on top of yourself, filing your if every quarter, whatever. All these things that you're putting out there, these brokers are seeing that and they're going, "Oh shit, this dude." Then all of a sudden, here's you with with a post, and you're in your truck, and you got an Axel Logistics mug, and you're like, "Hey," and then all of a sudden, all these comments at the bottom, Axel Logistics. Oh, I see that. Operations manager guys. Hey, I see that mug in the back. All right, like those are things like where you're marketing yourself. Where like you look at Ingrid Brown, some of these people like Dan, those guys they want to use them. These brokers are like, how do I get them on freight? I mean, I remember Ingrid, I'm like, Ingrid, can you run, what can you run for me? She's like, honey, I run a dedicated refrigerated. I ain't got time. I'm like, shit, we would put you on anything, It's easy.
That's true. And to what Luis was talking about, that professional side, you are your company. As an owner, you are your company everywhere you walk. So when you get out of a truck and you had a shipper, one of the things that I did, and I remember one of my best friends used to pick on me all the time, because I would always have my pants ironed and I always have my shirt tucked in, right? All the time. I was always about presentation. Presentation is everything to me. And even after 11 hours behind the wheel and I got, like you said, I only got a minute left on the clock, I'm hurrying up, I'm changing, I'm making sure that I'm looking presentable so that when I walk into that shipping office, you never know who you're going to walk into. You never know who's going to see you.
I don't mean to cut you off, but here's ultimately what's so great about our industry is everybody fits in that industry. Whether you want to be a company guy, whether you want to be an owner-operator, whether you want to be an independent owner-operator, without drivers, nothing moves. I don't care what anybody says. You can sit there and book 1,000 loads a day, but they don't move unless drivers pick them up. So there's something for everyone in this industry. If you want to be a driver, get in. Opportunities are endless. There's driving positions everywhere.
And when there's a shit ton of loads, then all of a sudden, you know, that's when that's happening, that's when all the other drivers that aren't any good are able to do well, right? When then all of a sudden the volume starts going down, all of a sudden it's like, oh, people are getting squeezed out. Well, you're getting squeezed out for a reason. You know, I always thought, you know, Ron Kane, I remember back during 2020 was talking about how these drivers were like, oh man, it's just offensive. You know, somebody's posted a load for 95 cents a mile or under $1 a mile. And Ron's like, I have loads like that. And I don't give a shit. Because you know what? If you don't pick it up today or you don't pick it up till next week, it doesn't fucking matter to me because it's not hot. I don't care. It's empty cans. It's 95 cents a mile. And guess what? Somebody always runs it.
Exactly. And that's
you don't like it, don't run it. But there's always freight out there that pays. Go find it. Right? And don't worry about that shit. Like you said earlier, Adam, like don't worry about anybody else's problem. Like you see a 95 cent a mile load, laugh a little bit. Fuck, somebody's gonna run that. But just understand how it works and be like, hey, somebody's going to run it, and it may end up being all right for them because they were going to deadhead home anyways. They were going to deadhead home. They're going to come and pick up this 5,000-pound load of cans. It's right in their lane. Yeah.
When carriers and companies like that just complain, like constantly, insistently, always complaining about what's happening and what is happening to them, it isn't a reflection of what the market's doing because the market's been the market for the last 100 years. The only time it's changed is when it did what it never did 3 years ago during the pandemic. It never did that. Mm-hmm. And that's when it was good. Eating was good. Everybody was eating like crazy. And then when it normalized, really quickly, everyone learned that it's a normal market. You didn't come into a normal market. You know, when I came in 4 years ago, that wasn't a normal market. That was a peak high in the history of freight market. And now that it's normalized, everybody sees the reality of the market normalizing and fuel going up. Those are realistic, you know, pain points when you're running your operation, and you got to adjust for that. So you either adjust to what's happening around you or you fall victim to what is happening in your world. That's what it boils down to. And that's a tough pill to swallow. Like it really is. When you're on this side, you know, racking up the bills and you're racking up $160,000 in fuel bills. It's a tough position to be in, right? You have to be the type of person to where if you're going to be in this, like you either learn to adjust and shift and you know, grow, right? Or you fall victim. Like that's just it.
Yep. And that's what, you know, I think, you know, you can talk about, everyone's talking about the market. Yeah. What is the market? Yeah. Do you know the market? Like, is the market just rates? Is the market freight? I mean, expedites are always moving. There's certain things that move more than others. There's certain places that pay more than others. You know, Adam talks about backyard. You know, the biggest thing is, you know, the best shippers you can find that pay a lot are suppliers. You know what I mean? You go to Ford. Hey, listen, Ford controls everything, right? And when they move their own freight, you better believe they're saving every penny they can. But I tell you what, you go find some foam suppliers, some plastic suppliers, some rubber suppliers up in Michigan. They only got 2 locations, but Ford's paying for it, and they got to have it, or their line doesn't move. They're paying a ton because all they got to do is make sure that shit gets there so that you can go down there on Ford's line and they get it done and get it made. And then once Ford has it, then all of a sudden they're going to charge a certain amount, right? And they're going to nickel and dime. That's where they save their money. But you find those suppliers, and they're smaller ones, man. And those are ones I've come in and taken over all their freight because they don't have a ton, right? And C.H. Robinson was doing it before, but they were getting, you know, the love because, you know, C.H. Robinson's so big, nothing against them. It's just, you know, some of those smaller ones, you know, you get some young guy put on it or something. But and that's where the money is. And that's where these guys, man, they know. I mean, I talked to some of these dudes up, especially in the Michigan area, you know, how much automotive's going on. They know exactly where to go. They know exactly where to go. They see all these kind of stuff. They're driving around. They're proactive, just like you, Lewis, right? You see that load. A lot of people maybe wouldn't have called on that or wouldn't have remembered or wouldn't have had their head on a swivel to see that load. And all of a sudden you're saying you're curious. You're wondering about it. Made you $600 on 8 miles. 2 hours.
Yeah, like personally, I'm not going to say everyone's like this, you know. Personally, I like to just always keep a thumb on what is happening. You have to keep some kind of pulse on what is happening in the market constantly. If you're in it, you have to know what it's doing. You don't have to know everything, but you have to have a pulse on what's happening, current events, your day-to-day life. Everything is affected by a truck. 90% of goods come from a truck, and it affects our entire way we live. So having a pulse on what's happening in the political world on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on all these platforms, just not knowing everything, but just being up to date with what's happening, what's being manufactured, what's being built. All that comes into collection to what you're bringing. Because if you don't bring it, it's not getting there.
Because there's shifts. It's not just a drop in capacity. Everybody's like, oh, capacity's down or capacity's up. It's not. It doesn't just go up and down. I mean, everything's the same. It shifts, right? It can shift to the ports, right? It can shift away from when the big four go down during COVID, right? All the automotives, when they go down, they shut down. Capacity didn't all of a sudden increase. It shifted, right? It shifted. There's 600,000 carriers that just run off the big four. 600,000 trucks that got pushed out into the market to run other. And they're going to not run for 2 months. They're going to go run something else, right? That affects rates, right? So where are the rates better? Why? What's going on? Like you said, just kind of a little bit of a pulse, right? Or stuff coming out of the ports, oil up. Is it spring, right? Is agriculture stuff moving more, right? These guys I know before, they were like, hey, I used to drive home every day and I'd see all these Conestogas loaded over there, and I started talking to people, and they're like, oh yeah, they pay a shit ton. It's water heaters. He's like, so what did I do? I went over to my buddy. He showed me all about Conestogas. I learned about it. I went and bought one. I went over and talked to the guy, and I got set up, and that's what I run now. That's all I run is right out of this guy's thing. Because they saw these Conestogas, start talking to people, found out that these guys that were running Conestogas, you had to have D-rings, you have all this stuff to run these water heaters, but they paid really well. But nobody wanted to do that, right? Yeah, he found out what paid well, and he got it done.
Here's what's cool about like having a network in this network, right? About being connected with other people in this industry, from brokers to drivers to carriers, is, for example, I'll have opportunities come to me that I'm saying no to just because I don't want them. They're incredible opportunities. I'm talking like making money in 5 days, crazy money numbers. I'm hitting up my connections, my owner op guys that I know, and I'm like, hey, you want this, you want this, you want this, just passing it along. I don't want it. And these opportunities come up when everybody's talking about the market's crap things are happening. There's no freight here. The rates are garbage. I understand that. But at the same time, what's nice or beneficial about being the independent owner is I'm here at 5 p.m. in my house on this call. I'm not in my rig. I have that freedom. I don't have to take every load. I run the way I want to, and I'm okay with that. Like, I dig it. Like I love the freedom that I have in my position. But having a network of friends and being professional allows me to be this way. I don't have to, as a carrier, pick every single load or run trash loads, as they call them. Like we got a network. I've got a great network of people. And at the end of the day, how you treat those people matters. Because those people, if you mistreated them, won't call you, won't use you. I know I wouldn't. I remembered every episode where I was mistreated. Never forgot them. We never forget those moments, right? It's hard to forget them.
How much do you preach that to your guys in your coaching?
I preach that. That's part of our coaching. Is all in the network. It's your network is your net worth. And the thing is that and it's easy math. And this is what we coach. The spot market represents about 10% of the overall freight that moves in America. 10%, right? That means that 90% of the freight that's moving in America doesn't even touch the spot market.
Right.
But how is the spot market the market? How is
Correct.
10% of what represents the industry the market? That's a percentage that's propaganda based, that is pushed out by folks that have problems that ain't my problems.
Yeah.
So what we teach is the relationships that are necessary for you to be part of the 90%. And focus on the 90. Now I get it. There was times I ran reefers and our reefers was on dedicated. We had our own directs. And there's times you got to run a backhaul off a load board, and that's cool, but that's not my market, right? That's just me just say, okay, you know what? I got to hurry up and I got to get back to North Carolina so I can reload at the tree farm. That's all it was. But the biggest point that everybody needs to realize is that 10% of an environment doesn't represent the 100% of the natural ecosystem. And our trucking industry is based on contractual relationships. And these contractual relationships are between either direct to carrier or direct to broker. And if those things can't get facilitated, then it gets sprinkled out. And you guys that are operating primarily, and I hate the fact that I hear stories that hurt me when I hear owner operators saying, hey, I've been running 40 years and this market is just going to crap. And I'm like, well, why are we even on this? Where did that come from? What market are you on? And if you've been in the business that long and we're still focused on just getting on a DAT or getting on a load board and trying to negotiate with a broker, then you missed something about 35 years ago. And
Yeah.
that's the relationship piece that I think that ultimately is the biggest opportunity within the marketplace. I think that most carriers don't realize the importance of it. The new folks that get in this business think that the first thing is go direct to load board and build your business on the load board. They don't understand the dynamics of freight. And,
Right.
And it just doesn't work that way. And now as we move into 2023 and 24, now we're looking at digital freight mass and services that you don't even have to go and you don't even have to pick up a phone call. You can get direct freight by just going onto these digital platforms like Emerge Technologies, like your Uber Freights that have that dedicated freight that's already embedded within them that you can actually go and embed it and you don't even have to do anything. But, I guess, what you don't know, you don't know. But at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. It's all about building those relationships. It's all about eating crow sometimes. Like you said, Luis, there's times, man, you just gotta hold your chin up. There's not everybody in this business is going to be professional. There's going to be people that you're going to get on the phone, they're going to cuss you out just because your name's Luis. And you just got to deal with it. At the end of the day, you still wear your logo proudly and you move on to the next one. But I can tell you one thing, your problem is not my problem. And I always preach that. Don't allow somebody else's problem to become your own.
Yeah, and that's that. You look at, like you said, knowing what the market is. What is the market? The market a lot of times is what's flashing in front of you, right? So you look at it like, when it comes to market pairs, if you base market pairs on three-digit zip codes, there's about 133 of them, right? Based on three-digit zip codes, market pairs, right? Which means there's around like 13,000 potential lanes. Okay, and this is per mode. Say, all right. About 20% of those actually have any significant volume. All right. So we know out of 133 market pairs on a three-digit zip code basis, right? And there's 13,000 potential lanes per mode. Well, about 20% have any significant volume, which means if anybody's talking about anything when it comes to the market, it's probably that 20%, right? Right? Because that's where everything matters, right? That's what everybody wants to run in because that's where all the volume is, right? At least 80% of those market pairs, right? Of those 13,000 potential lanes that still have volume in them, but it's not the highest 20%, like the significant volume, right? So it's there, the freight's there, right? But nobody wants to consider that as part of the market, right? Nobody wants to consider these short runs of like what Lewis found, right? Nobody wants to consider, running a pallet of bolts, from Lansing to Detroit, 68 miles, getting paid $780 because it's got to get to the line, right? I mean, like there's shit you can find. You got to know when to find it. You got to be able to jump on and get it done. Now, there's also things that come along. That's what Adam does. I mean, there's guys that need to know how to write emails, right? There's guys that need to know how to find those things, right? Even when it comes to just the language, it comes to English and things like that. Those are all hurdles. But the people that know what the hurdles are that they have, one of my biggest hurdles is my hairline. You know what I mean? But I've learned to overcome that, right, Lewis? We've talked about that many times. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, like you've got hurdles you have in your life, right? That are part of your job. That if you seek out people like Adam or anybody else that can help you, don't be too prideful to say, hey, listen, I know there's opportunity out there, but how do I find it? Where's it at? What do I do? What could make me better?
Yeah, I would say your number one asset in this industry is being resourceful.
Yes.
Period.
And humble.
Learn what being resourceful is. If you're not sure what it is, look the word up, study it. If you're going to get in this industry, that is going to be your best asset is being resourceful.
Yep. It'll set you apart because there's people that fail.
Exactly.
When these rates go down, guys, you guys got to understand. Listen, I'm on the phone with shippers all day long, right? I've dealt with all these RFPs, RFIs. The biggest thing is that, they got their ass kicked for the last 2 years. All right. And a lot of them report to a CFO, somebody that just doesn't get it, doesn't understand the market, doesn't understand what was going on. Right. And they got to find a way. They don't care. They got to find a way to drive rates down. But when you drive rates down, right, when you pay with peanuts, you get monkeys. Right. I mean, that's what they say. Right. And so it's just how it works. Right. So it's just how it works, man. And so like they're going to find the service is going to go down. Right. You got to still separate yourself because at the end of the day, they have to keep their customers. And that CFO who was worried about rates is now all of a sudden worried about losing customers. Now he's saying, I don't give a shit about rates. And we just need somebody to be able to service this. Whatever you can do, I trust you. So like things are going to switch a little bit. Right. You're going to see it kind of move back and forth. Not all the way around because not all freight really really matters when it comes to service. But there's a lot of ones that do. You can service it, and they know you, and they can call you, and they can say, "Hey, I know Adam. I know Lewis. I call him right now." Such a long way. It could take you so long, and it's a long game that you play. I don't care if you're a broker, a carrier. I've always said this in this industry: play the long game. I'm telling you, you try to play the short game, it just isn't gonna work out for you.
Yeah, the short game saw a record-breaking amount of revocations in September of 21. They had like 6,000 revocations in that month alone.
That's but you got to remember, revocations are all relative too. They're relative to the overall influx of overall carriers in the market, because with that same amount, we saw this very, very high amount of new carriers into the market.
Right. Yeah. A bunch came in, and that's, again, that's why. But hearing that again, and it just stems back to having a pulse on what's happening in your market. Like, you're getting in, it's just listening to that. Like, I hear that, and I hear opportunity, and I should, say what you want. Most people hear that and they're like scared, right? There's fear, and it's like, well, to others, that's opportunity. You just got to see it that way. Shift your mindset, right, with certain things, especially in this industry.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah. Listen, I mean, that's what it is. I'd say, Adam, leave us with some closing thoughts here on your passion when it comes to the success people can have no matter what's going on. I mean, what is it? Because I know there's always something that just is something that sticks with you. You put a little piece of it in each post, but what are your closing thoughts on that could push, maybe somebody that listens to this could push them through 2023?
My tunnel vision is when I say the tunnel vision that I have is just incredible, but I always go back to the Smith system. And I know, Lewis, you probably are familiar with the Smith system. But the same components of the Smith system for defensive driving, the aim, high when steering, the components that are really important are the same components that come to entrepreneurship. Like, you got to aim high and steering when you're behind the wheel of a truck so you can foresee things that come, but you got to do the same thing when you're aiming high as an entrepreneur, right? So you got to plan for those things, and you always got to look ahead of the horizon. You always got to plan for the future. You always got to make sure when you leave yourself an out as a truck driver, you got to make sure you got a way of getting out of certain situations, right? So you don't want to tailgate somebody. If I'm in a construction zone, I want to be able to get myself a way out. As an entrepreneur, I'm going to leave myself an out because I want to provide myself an opportunity to pivot in a different lane because, hey, you know what? Maybe reefer freight is not that great for me, and maybe I need to turn this lease trailer in, and maybe I need to hook up to that counter stove. So I'm giving myself the opportunity to pivot. So there's so many components that within entrepreneurship that have direct parallels to trucking. But the most important one that I always leave people with is the fact of tunnel vision, that your problem is not my problem and your pressure is not my pressure. And no matter what anybody says, you can pick. We go into a situation or a circumstance. My mentality is always going to push me the way out of this. And the thing about this industry is that you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. But at the end of the day, the ones that are, and you hear it all the time, it's a cliche, only the strong survive. Yeah, whoop-de, whoop-de, whoop-de. I get it. But it's really true in this industry, the strong will survive. And just like, Lewis talked about revocations, don't got nothing to do with me. And it doesn't have anything to do with those folks that really want to be successful in this business. So, I can go on and on with leaving parting shots, but one of those things that I really wanted to leave from a manner of just mindset is that if your mindset is right, then your grind set is going to match it.
I love it. I love that. That's good shit. And I will say, I'm going to touch back on something that he said before we even went live. I'll kind of end it with this, but you could justify what you're doing, and I think that's why a lot of people complain. But you could just be hustling backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And you said that earlier. I said, hey, we were talking about fuel or whatever. It's like, hey, people just hustling backwards, and that's a thing. It's real, right? So in your mind, you're hustling, right? You're hustling. You're working, right? And it's frustrating. I get it, right? And so it's got to be somebody else's fault, something else. But you could just backwards. I love that. God damn it, I'm going to use that. I'm changing hashtag handle to hashtag hustle backwards.
Yeah, I like that one, and I like to use a lot. That one that I've learned a lot is fail forward.
Yeah,
we're all going to fail.
Yeah,
you can either hustle. Say it one more time so I can remember it. Hustle backwards. Is that
no hustling backwards, man?
No hustle. Don't be hustling backwards.
Yeah, no hustling backwards, or or fail forward. So
because we were talking about fuel, right? So you could be out hustling, right, and just spending a ton on fuel and not manage it right because you're hustling and you're justifying it. But you could save yourself. Go look at Adam's page. He put out a great post earlier about the difference between what was it, 9 miles a gallon and
7.5 miles a gallon and 6.5 miles a gallon. It's an $8,000 difference.
huge.
$8,000 right there in fuel over a year. I mean that's just hustling backwards if you're not managing that. So I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great way to look at it. I think everybody here, I mean, like Lewis is one that I don't think he ever understood really what he was doing when it came to, hey, buddy.
Sorry, man. My wife's on call, so I'm on
Oh,
bed.
yeah, right.
You're good.
When it came to like what we talk about when you go into shippers, because he did the same thing when I was running the fleet at Circle. He was in there. He was in the office. He'd come in, TJ, what's going on? He'd get to know me, right? What do you got going? What do you got going? So when shit came up, when the good stuff came up, he knew, right? I mean, there's certain ways to play the game. So get yourself out there, find ways to do it. Follow Adam. I'm telling you right now, you follow Adam, you're going to get ideas right off the bat. Plus, Adam, talk a little bit about you guys' coaching, what you guys can do for him.
Man, so when it comes to entrepreneurial success in trucking, this is what we're focused on. We focus on supporting owner-operators, fleet owners, and small carriers, and providing them with resources and strength behind their businesses to help elevate their business to the next level with a variety of digital tools and mentorship. One of our most popular tools is our break-even calculator, where we really teach you how to get to your bottom line profit and how to forecast and project your profits on a weekly basis. So just follow us. We got tools for success, and that's our goal that's been our goal from the beginning, is to make the small guy successful.
Yep, and that's rare. It's rare. I mean, there's a lot of owner operators that lean on a factoring company or lean on a maybe their operations manager or their dispatcher. But that doesn't mean they're getting the right information for people that have been there, done that, and know what's going on and have a pulse on things. So you guys really want to, I mean, in all honesty, you really want to do well, work with people like Adam, follow people like Lewis, follow people, be resourceful, be humble, and be willing to learn, man, because I'm telling you what, there's a lot of opportunity out there. So, all right, guys. Hey, I appreciate it, man. What a great conversation. I could freaking go all night on this stuff. So hopefully this got a little bit to some people, but Adam, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you.
Yep, everybody follow Adam. And don't forget to follow Lewis. Don't follow me. I'm kind of weird. So, all right, guys.
All right, see you guys.
Take care.